Senator Sifuna. I know it's a very, very tough moment because I understand where he has drawn some of his strength in terms of how he sees the world. And indeed they say the apple does not fall far away from the tree. We have seen the character that Sifuna brings in politics, not only in this house, but also in the country, that indeed there is somewhere that he fetches it. But Mr. Speaker, you know, being a young person in this country and reading books, left-wing politics has been one of the hardest politics to be in, because left-wing politics is indeed related to defiance. Left-wing politics is related to being against the system always. But also left-wing politics can be about being able to stand for social justice, being able to stand for economic equality, and being able to fight inequality in whichever form that it comes within our borders. And these are the characters and things that represent Honorable Lawrence Sifuna. Because if you read history of this country, Mr. Speaker, we stand today in a very strong democracy because of the giants that came before us. And I think that spirit can be able to inspire us, that indeed, when it comes to left-wing politics, we can be able to stand and have a country where ethnicity cannot be the functional equation for being able to employ others. Mr. Speaker, our country today, you will find that two tribes are grossly overrepresented in terms of employment. And these are things that Lawrence Sifuna did fight against. Mr. Speaker, today in Parliament, we find that the vibrancy of Parliament is extremely compromised, simply because the tenets of democracy, which includes being able to separate the idea of executive from Parliament, is completely compromised, because today Parliament becomes an appendage of the executive, to the extent that parliamentarians have been sent into these two houses that we see today, the Senate and the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, are hugely compromised, bending laws to the executive, Mr. Speaker. Some of the laws that were passed in this house in the Senate, Mr. Speaker, that are against the spirit of devolution have been passed because we are constantly inclining our politics to the politics of being covered by the executive, Mr. Speaker. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to say, and I want to celebrate my leader, Raila ODINGA. I know that I will not bring him into this, but I want to celebrate him in the context of the idea that democracy does not always mean that even if you lose elections in a number of times, then you give up. I say this because in the early 1990s, Mr. Speaker, Lawrence Sifuna went back home after being affected by a lot of Mlolongo movements and still won a number of elections that inspired generations. And I hope that we can learn from him, and as a people, being able to start fighting for electoral justice as one thing that this country has never been able to solve. Even as we go on with the elections that we are going to have in future, even after the talks that we have had, the bipartisan talks, that the hardest thing that we have been able to crack, even in the talks that have just ended, is the issue of electoral justice. And I hope that the spirit of Lawrence Sifuna will inspire the topmost leadership of this country, starting from the president to the deputy president to vigogo wa siasa, as the Swahilis will say it, to be able to solve one issue that can unite this country, that after an election, Mr. Speaker, a country can sit back, that anybody who loses will lose genuinely, and anybody who wins will win genuinely, and people sit together and build a nation on the tenets of a functional democracy that has been elusive to this country for years. May the soul of Honorable Lawrence Sifuna rest in eternal